got a fantastic sample of beans.
Absolutely. The story is just looking at the Capulet. It's looking really clean, quite shiny, but fantastic looking harvest.
Verdict really hugely successful.
Absolutely. Yeah, equipment-wise, variety-wise, yeah, the genetics is working. These varieties actually are very well suited for growing in this country.
Yeah. So this is it. Never been here before. Been past it lots of times, but I didn't realise it was the Prince's factory. There we go. So you can see a regular face here. Eric from Warwick University. We've just arrived at the Prince's factory, which is good to see the beans go through some baking tests. If anybody wants a job, as Eric just said, they're recruiting. There you go, there's the details. We're now in the kitchen. We're just talking about the process, what we're going to be doing this morning. There's 12 of us here, a mixture of BBC, Prince's, Agri, who are the company we've done the growing with, and also Warwick University. So Eric here, Bronwyn from the press team at Warwick Uni, and myself. So Liam's about to explain the process, and they are the beans that we've grown. The Capulet, and these are the ones from America. Not much difference, apart from those obviously look better. Setting up the BBC cameras. Lindsay, who you've seen in my videos before, is getting ready to ask the questions.
This is our development kitchen, so all the development we do for all the different products that we make in our business, which range from beans through vegetables, pulses, pasta, canned ready meals, soups. We do all the initial development samples are made in this room and processed in our pilot plant next door.
And tell me, how special is it to have some British beans in here? Have you ever had to do trial like this before?
I've been working in the canning industry for 30 years, on this site for 20, and this is the first time I've ever had a British bean, British pulse. It really is. I honestly didn't think it could be done in the climate, but obviously some very clever people have worked on it.
Beans before you start.
Salt.
Yeah, these are them being soaked. We've got the tomato paste, and then what have we got in there?
Sugar, salt, seasonings and starches.
Brilliant. Thank you. Here we have the sauce.
Should I go and tee up Lindsay, the colleague who's taking us into the factory?
They're delivered to us in the dry format. To process them, we need to rehydrate them, so we soak them overnight, and then we give them a quick blanch to prepare them to allow us to use them in the process. So we take the blanched beans and fill a known weight into the can, which we're doing here. Check the weight, leave it in the bowl. So when we have the required amount of beans, we'll then add the tomato sauce, which is made up to our unique recipe, but obviously you can tell it's got tomato paste, sugar, salt, and spices.
What spices?
The spices are unique to us, and they're our trade secret. So we add in the required.
How important is the tomato sauce?
It's what the British public is used to eating these beans in. It's always been these beans in tomato sauce. I mean, so it's what the British, or what we sell so many of, what the British public eat and want and recognise. I mean, you could process beans in any types of sauce, but it is beans in tomato sauce. It's what everyone knows and loves.
Do you think they've noticed if you change the recipe?
They always notice when we change the recipe.
Really nicely, very natural.
Yeah.
This shot's well good.
That's why I want it as well.
We're getting them from online, haven't they?
In the cans. So
We're just now walking through to where they're going to be, the lid's going to be put on, and then they're going to be cooked. This is the area. A lot of equipment in here. This is the machine here that puts the lids on and seals the tins.
We're going to seal the can. Obviously, the product is cooked in the can, which makes it edible, makes it safe, and gives it a long shelf life. So to do that, we need to put the lid on, seal the end. So it might be going so fast you see nothing, so can't really have to try that.
That's it, that's the lid pressed on.
What was down has been turned into rolled up underneath itself to give you what's known as a double seal.
That's, sorry, can you take that lid off? So that's the lid, the lid, before it's sealed on, okay.
Yeah. So obviously in the factory this is happening like 700 times a minute.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously we've lifted up. The roller comes in. There's two actions. It does roll.
Yes.
So basically, what's done is it's rolled up the metal. So you have 4 thicknesses of metal.
Yeah.
And it's giving you a seal.
Yeah.
When it's done right. So.
Look at that. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks, Liam. And now we're coming across to the steamer, and this is where they are cooked. They are cooked in the tin, believe it or not.
We have a pilot plant sterilizer which mimics what we have in the factory, and we're just going to use that to process and sterilize the can of beans we just filled to turn it into big beans. It's working at 4 bar, which is 60 psi, pounds per square inch of steam pressure, to give it, obviously, steam at 100 degrees is, our steam at just, whereas as the water boils is 100 degrees. To get the high temperature, we would put that under pressure, 60 pounds per square inch. That will give us, because the steam comes in here 160 pounds per square inch, we drop the pressure down to give us that temperature we want, under 26 degrees. So 20 minutes, 21 minutes at 126 degrees, cooks the beans, because obviously they're still quite, if you take a bean now and you bite it, it's still quite firm. Obviously the bean you get in a can of beans is lovely and soft and creamy almost, for texture. Now to achieve that, you're going to have to, one, the cooking process sterilizes the product, gives it its 2-year shelf life. There's no chemicals or anything involved in the long shelf life. It's the heat that gives you
The long shelf life.
the long shelf life.
I never knew that.
And basically that also then cooks the bean. Now we have to apply more heat to the product than we require to make it safe, because safety is reached here, but quality of texture is reached over here. So that's the steamed cans of beans and process them. So we just basically
And what is this? This is basically a big cooker.
basically this is a tiny cooker compared to what we have in the factory, but it mimics what the factory cooker does. So just going to have to strap them in to stop them falling out.
So you can hear now what's going on here. Steam's all being brought in, it builds up the temperature. Just discussing the next phase of filming.
You've never had British beans in here. Tell me what they tasted like when you finished with them.
I really couldn't tell any difference. I mean, if I put them out, I would think if I put them out in front of someone who didn't know what I'd done, they wouldn't comment on the beans at all. They were just the same, nice, fine, good creamy texture, typical of what you consider baked bean.
And was that the aim?
Yeah, I mean, people really, you don't want to be upsetting people with their baked beans. They can be very particular about what they want. So I mean, if we're going to have a British bean, it needs to be the same as what people are expecting or what they come to get.
I'm Corporate Relations Director for Princess.
Okay. So first of all, tell me about this Princess factory in Spalding. Tell me about the beans that you make and how many you make every year, because people might not necessarily know what you do.
Well, Long Sutton is Prince's largest food factory in the UK. We've got another food factory not too far away from here, and soft drinks and oils factories. But this is our largest by some distance. We have over 500 full-time colleagues here. In terms of baked beans, well, actually this isn't the site where we make all of our beans, but this is our development kitchen. So this is where we go through the process of trying these British beans. At another site near here is where we make all of our baked beans, and we make Branston baked beans. Well, we make around about 264 million cans of beans a year, so using around about 100 or 110,000 tonnes of the navy beans themselves. Most of the beans that we or anybody in this country that would use to make baked beans will come from North America. That's the predominant source. Well, it's really important for us to take part in this trial. There's a couple of reasons for that really. We're always interested in looking at new sources of raw materials. So when we first became aware of the project, it's something we wanted to be involved in to see if this was workable for us and to go through this stage of testing in the kitchen and then ultimately at a more larger scale. But it's important to do that for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's important to have a diversity of sources. So there is a food security argument in terms of UK being a little bit more self-sufficient perhaps, and such an iconic product that's so widely consumed by so many of us in this country. But also there is an interesting environmental angle as well in terms of having a UK source of beans. Carbon and embedded carbon in agriculture is something that we as a business are looking at. And we are very mindful that the miles that food travels isn't necessarily the biggest part of their carbon. Pulses like these beans are already inherently a very low carbon crop because of how they grow. But nonetheless, it's inevitable that if beans are coming from the UK rather than North America, that will reduce the carbon footprint even further.
Is it a bit of a coup for you to get these first ever British beans here?
Well, yeah, I guess so. We're very proud to have them here today. We've got a bit to go yet. We've gone through the development kitchen stage. We need to scale this up in terms of full-scale manufacturing. But we're in the first stages of a journey here. I mean, we're talking about a few kilos and then a few tons to enable us to do that first-scale manufacturing. We use over 100,000 tonnes a year. There's a lot of beans to grow before we're using them entirely from the UK. And of course, we have to be very mindful in terms of not just performance, in terms of the line and quality and taste that consumers will expect. We also, of course, have to be mindful of value and affordability, and that's important for us and important for our consumers as well. It's the 88% of households, that's around about 24 million households buy baked beans each year. In food terms, that's huge. There aren't many foods that have high levels of penetration in that. So it's an iconic and important product, and all the more reason why we need to make sure the quality of these beans is right. For us as a business, we produce and are very proud to manufacture Branston baked beans, which is one of the largest brands in the UK.
Do you only produce Branston beans?
We produce Branston as our brand, but we are a manufacturer also of some other label beans for third-party customers and retailers.
I'm a professor in crop science, food systems for the university. At University of Bred.
We've been talking about this for a long time. How does it feel to watch this today?
It's fantastic. It's a milestone. We've had a good year working with Andy Ward, the farmer, seeing how the crop is being grown, to finally be in a factory to see the beans being cooked. It's really an important milestone.
How important is it that that these beans are able to be grown in the UK when they're such a staple of our diet?
It's extremely important. We know from our public health that we need to be eating more fiber, plant fiber. Beans is a really good source of fiber. We need to eat more than we currently are, so it's fantastic to know that the kind of beans we're familiar with, there actually is some that can be grown in this country, but we can look beyond that even further.
How long have you been working on this project to get to today?
Me personally, I've been working on development of Capulet, which is a bean we're looking at today, for about 10 years. It's material that came out of previous work back in the 80s. There were some scientists that worked on these varieties, but more recently I picked things up in 2011 and we've been evaluating and bringing things to the stage that we're at today.
There's been a few years when you were so close to getting a harvest. 2022, it was a heat wave that killed them off, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did you ever think this moment would come?
I always knew this moment would come. The important thing is that we have trialed for several years, so we're getting familiar with the varieties that we've developed. We're seeing that they actually can be grown year after year, depending on whatever conditions we have. But to get to the stage where we've got enough to bring it to a factory and actually see how they can, this was a milestone year.
And tell me, what benefits does this bring, environmental benefits for food manufacturing?
Well, I would point out that actually there are a lot of people that want to eat beans that want to cook them as well. So it's the current beans from manufacturing is essential, but expanding that into our consumption to a daily diet, it's the whole picture.
So we're just going to open the door and get the cans out. Never mashed baked beans.
What do you think, Andrew?
It's incredible to think that these have been grown at home 30 miles away from here.
What does today represent for you?
It's an absolute milestone because on the farm at home we're always trying to grow new things and trying to do things to save on food mileage and to save on imports, because we're importing too much food, and to be able to produce something that we consume in such great quantities in this country. It's just unbelievable that we've got this product here that's grown on our soil at home. That's nearly breathtaking.
And you got a bit of stick, didn't you, at first? When you first planted them, people saying it'll never happen, you'll never be able to grow them.
Yeah.
So how does it feel today?
I get a lot of stick on social media, as you know, and to do this though, it's fantastic to prove them wrong. We've a long way to go. Yes, there's lots of learning still to do. We know what we've got to do next year to improve, and next year after that, there's a long way to go before we have enough beans produced commercially in the country to be able to make it worthwhile. But it's a start, and it's something that we must continue. We must have more homegrown protein, and we must have more food produced at home instead of importing so much. Absolutely unbelievable.
What are you having to say?
Baked beans on toast.
Process too, haven't you? This must represent a big day for Agri.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge success story. We've been involved for 4 or 5 years now. Started with less than 100 kilos of seed from Eric at Warwick University, and over those 4 or 5 years we've worked out effectively how to grow this crop. It's all well and good having the breeding program, but you have to agronomise it. You have to be able to grow that crop and take it through to harvest successfully.
In lots of cases, you're trying to grow different things, but in this case, you're trying to grow something that tasted exactly how the British public expected it to. When you tell me about that?
Yeah, well, there was no margin for error really. We had to grow a Capulet, a haricot bean, exactly the same as how they would grow it in North America, and really it hadn't been done, so we had to make sure that we could achieve that. The thing now is to keep going with this story. We're at a stage, but we need to scale up production. You need to be able to grow these crops consistently and to a significant year on.
Just had a massive investment here.
This is tomato puree.
That's the tomato puree.
Yeah. And as always, it's a commodity that is scarce to come by sometimes. So you stockpile 1 to 2 degree. Yeah. So this here is these are spaghetti rings.
That's 20 tonne in each one of those.
Each row, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then each side is 1,750 bags.
How often
Wow,
do
and
you
that
get
block
loads
there.
in a week?
So
Second,
How many loads in a week?
depending, we can have as much as 10 a day.
And how many's on a load?
So you've got 10 bags of 2 tonne bags in a container.
So 200 tonnes a day.
Yeah, and then that will keep rolling through. Obviously, that could be 5 days, but we've had more. We've had up to 20. So.
So a month and a half worth of storage here.
Oh, okay. The whole thing.
To give you an idea of how many dry
all the way back there. That'll go in, pick it up, bring it to the end, and then the driver only takes off from there.
So you can see that little robot thing there, so that goes along the line, along the racking.
That's about 10 to 12 grand.
10 to 12 grand for that. And that goes along the line here, and it'll pick up that end bag there and bring it along and put it there so the forklift can then come and take it. But obviously when you're going up the top there, it's a long way. Just looking in here, apparently that robot you just saw, there's about 10 or a dozen of them in here, and when the forklift will move it into the line that they want the bags from, so there isn't one of those on every line. And the biggest bags in here are 2 tons, and there is about 6 weeks supply in here altogether, which when you look here is absolutely phenomenal. Just going into the line now where we can have a smell, and apparently they're just doing some chili con carne, and that is what we can smell. There's a very strong spicy smell in here at the minute. There you go, it's all sectioned off walkways, all this plastic fencing, pedestrian fencing. Very impressive facility here. We're just changing over a canning line now, changing over product. So the tins come in here, and this is where the lids are put on. Walk through the old part of the factory just here, which is about 30-40 years old. Yeah, thanks Paul. So yeah, Eric, we've had an interesting few hours there with BBC and GB News. So we've had very interesting. For a start, I didn't realise that the factory was so big. Did you?
No, not at all. I've never been here, so it's a new treat
it's
to see a factory like this.
And the A17 is just literally 100 yards in front of us, and of course our farm is on the edge of the A17, so literally 30 miles that way. But I think the whole process, fascinating at the canning stage, and I didn't actually realise that they steamed them in the tin as such, and they cooked them in the tin.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, great. But so the next stage is they're going to have 2-ton sample come up, aren't they? And get those put in. And how many did you say?
Right. Probably about 13,000 tins.
So 2 tons.
Out of 2 tins.
Yeah, 13,000 tins. So that's the next stage. And then one other useful stat you were telling me on the way here was that if the beans that we grow over the next 2 or 3 years, if all of them are used for seed to grow on the next year, by harvest 26,
it would be probably about a week's supply of beans and tomato sauce.
Yeah. So how many tons did we say? What was that?
That'd be about 300 tons.
So 300 tons
a day.
Per day. Yeah, and that's just a week's supply. So yeah, just incredible when you look at that stats, how many beans are consumed. But yeah, really impressive here, isn't it? I think it's great to see it, and the amount of companies as well that they cook or produce baked beans for. It's not just Prince's, it's other supermarkets and retailers, which I didn't realise. But anyway, great, Eric. Yeah, great, thank you.